Welcome to another Sunday Superversive live stream. I'm your host, Ben Wheeler, flying solo with Misha Burnett. Apologies to the front. I'm afraid Anthony and I are, how should I say it, distracted by life and have not been able to put out the quality content you all love and crave. But instead, I'm bringing in an author with quality content I'm sure you didn't know you craved before, but now I'm about to open up a whole new vista of cravings to you. White Castle cannot compare to Misha Burnett. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. It's it looks like it's stopping raining, which means that I might be able to get my dog to go outside. She's been sitting at the back door and whining most of the day, wanting me to stop the rain. But
Oh, yeah.
uh, but I'm doing okay. A little bit overwhelmed. I got a number of irons in the fire right now, but I'm glad for this opportunity to come and talk to you about at least one of them. My new project for Kursova, um, who, by the way, even leaving aside my own work, um, if anybody that I am personally acquainted with has got a chance at taking a seat at the major publishers table, it's Kursova. He's got an incredible business sense, incredible aesthetic sense, and if you're not supporting him, you should be. And the fact that he's one of my main publishers is completely beside the point. There's plenty of other stuff. Even if you hate my work, go and check him out. The magazine is in its fifth or sixth year now, and he has never been late on a Kickstarter. He has never failed to fulfill. Just a consummate professional from start to finish. So that's my Kursova plug for the day.
Oh yeah, Kursova is a fantastic content creator who has absolutely been rocking these. Uh, my goodness, has been rocking these Kickstarters recently, starting with um, the romance set on Saturn, the Cosmic Courtship, to some of the more recent ones with Jim Brayfogle and Mongoose and Meerkat, fantastic works. I believe I had the author of Mongoose and Meerkat on recently to talk about it. But let's push away from dear friends and rivals and into an atlas of bad roads. Could you describe it for us, sir?
Well, it the genesis of this project actually started several years ago when I transitioned from writing novels to writing short fiction, and I realized that with novels you've got a set goal that's real easy. You can say, okay, I'm going to do X number of books, X number of so with short fiction it's a little harder for me to come up with benchmarks. And one thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to do three collections that were entirely my own work: one fantasy, one science fiction, and one horror. And this is the
Mm-hmm.
horror. So this is my making my long term goal. It's um, it's a collection of 16 stories, some of which, if you're familiar with my earlier work, my first collection was Dual Visions, which I did with another author called Louise Harrison. That was just I had some weird stories, didn't know what to do with it. I liked her work. She does weird fiction too,
Mm-hmm.
and the two of us pitched it to Kursova and said, "Hey, what if you did five stories from each of us?" And that sold for several years, but for a number of complicated reasons, it's going out of print. So the five stories that I contributed to Dual Visions are going to be in an atlas of bad roads, and 11 other stories besides, some of which have been previously published in different magazines and different anthologies, some of which are entirely new. I've never seen the light of day before now. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
they're a mix. Horror is kind of a fuzzy edged genre.
Yes.
Uh, so it's they're more weird tales than anything else. One of my huge inspirations growing up, which describes explains a lot about me, was the old um, EC and DC horror comics, Tales of Mystery, or House of Mystery, House of Secrets, Tales from the Crypt.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and those were always a setup for either the jump scare or the um, kind of twisted poetic justice at the end of it, the hook, um, and they were all kind of built around the hook, and that's sort of the philosophy I take, um, how I define what is a horror story in terms of my own work. And most of these start with, in my mind anyway, they started with the old crypt creepers he laugh moment, and then I said, okay, how do I get to that?
Right.
Uh, I've got so they're not. Uh, there's no definitive. Some of them are more science fictiony. Some of them are more fantasy, supernatural. Some of them are just flat out weird, and I never do explain anything about them. I've got ghost stories. I've got um, evil clowns stories. Um, uh, uh, that's one of them is historical. It's an old west, weird west. Another one's an alternate history about um, uh, basically about a guy that goes back in time and assassinates Adolf Hitler, and then comes back and finds out he's made things worse. Um,
Classic.
yeah, yeah. I've got a rewrite of an old fairy tale that I hope people will recognize without me telling them what it is. Um, so yeah, they're all over the place. Like I say, it's 16 stories. A lot of them are fairly short because horror stories tend to be, especially like I said, the ones that are designed around a punchline. Um, just a few pages to work up to the kicker.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing that makes this kind of different than most of the stuff that people are taking, putting out these days, is I've got 16 poems as well. I actually have. They're not directly linked, but there's a poem. It's the front piece of every story. Um, I feel very passionate about poetry, and when I say poetry, by gum, I mean poetry that rhymes, that has an actual rhyme scheme. Most of these are sonnets or variations on sonnets. Sonnets is like poker. It'll tell you the basic idea, but there are so many variations. So they're mostly variations on sonnets, and I've tried to match up the poem with the feel of the story. Um, so that's like I say, that's in there. I don't know what else to say really. I mean, it when I lay it out like this, I think to myself, these stories go back, God, over 10 years. One of my very first published short stories, for example, um, in uh, a collection called Sins of the Past, um, We Pass from View, is in there. So, I mean, this is and that was at least 12 years ago. that I published that one. Um, Plus, there's at least one in here that well, one in particular that I'm thinking of that I finished up really about the same time that Alex was saying, okay, let's go ahead and put it together. Basically hammered it out and got it in just under the wire. So there's people who are interested in my evolution as a writer will be able to probably not get anything from this because I'm all over. I've got a very scattershot approach. First person, third person. Actually, most of these are third person. Most of them are because I think that fits horror better. It's more of looking over their shoulder rather than looking through their eyes. And there's always the yeah, in the back of your mind, if it's a first person story, the main character survives to the end of the story.
Yep.
When it's third person, you can't be sure.
Yes. Absolutely. And that brings in a lot of great ambiguity to horror, so that a character that you're hopefully invested in, might not survive. Well, you sort of start feeling something for that. You sort of get a little something for it, a little twinge in the heart. Uh, let's see. With I guess I suppose there's no harm in asking this. Would you like to read one of your sonnets out loud?
I can do that. Let's see. Oh, here we go. This is one that is not a scary one actually, unless you specifically want a scary one.
Well, one
Um,
that's connected to your anthology.
well, this is part one in my anthology.
Ah,
The
yes, very good
connection
then.
though is well, okay, I won't do that one because that story's even for this one kind of off of the beaten path. Um, I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
Oh, I don't mind. So you mentioned, I'll just talk and tell the story while you're looking it up. I actually am familiar with the Weird Tales magazines that was put out by DC and others. Uh, there was one that got me, that absolutely terrified me. And that was, I forget the name of it, but it was about a hunter who is hunting baboons. Right? So you got, kind of the white, arrogant hunter sort of trope going on from England. And he has his friends and he's hunting baboons and he kills a baboon. So all of a
Right.
sudden, in the middle of the night, he is surrounded by baboons. And one ancient and wizened one comes forward and hypnotizes him. So all of a sudden he wakes up, and this is all terrifying. Like the artist, was floating in the air, covered in lightning, with his muse whispering in his ear, for how terrifying the baboons were. To this day, I am affected by the images of baboons. Uh, and he wakes up as a baboon, and he goes, "Oh no, what's happening to me?" He runs around. He tries to help his friends, but all of a sudden they turn and they shoot him dead, commenting to themselves, "Oh, what a strange baboon! That baboon was about to attack us, just as he had done in the beginning."
I'm not sure I remember that story, but that was a common theme actually. I
Hmm.
can remember a couple along those lines that where the hunter gets turned into the thing he's hunting.
Yep.
Um,
Oh,
but
it's a
yeah, it's
great trope.
that kind of like I said, kind of a twisted poetic justice.
Mm-hmm.
That okay, here we go. This one is called Drive-In Movie. Look, just don't go near the place. I don't care if there's holes in the fence. It's the scene of a horrible murder case, still unsolved. What are you, dense? Do you notice the row of dolls on the shelf? They're all looking at you with ominous eyes. Fine, I'm leaving. Stay here by yourself. What happens next can't be a surprise. What part of haunted don't you apprehend? For Christ's sakes, the walls are starting to bleed. Believe me, I'm telling you, this is a friend. Forget the mystery. It's an exit you need. Okay, if you're staying, I'll stick to you like glue, but don't say I didn't warn you.
Ah, that's fantastic. And you said it's attached to a story?
That one is actually attached to We Pass from View, which is about about a movie, about the Hollywood movie that was so terrible that everybody who saw it went insane. So which is one of my favorite. Actually, that's like I said, that's the first one that chronologically that I sat down and wrote it straight through for an anthology called Sins of the Past. Um,
Hmm. Well, it certainly whets my appetite for the story itself, which isn't something I was kind of expecting. Sometimes, especially with like say John C. Wright, he has poetry and it never really quite hits me. But I don't know, like connected up with knowing that the poem and the story are bespoke to each other is actually kind of I don't know. It's like ooh, I like it.
well, one of my hobby horses that I talk about a lot is the that poetry is the best way to learn how to write fiction, writing poetry.
Mm.
I'm a firm believer that a lot of the the pulp movement or the pulp revolution or revival or whatever it is. um, People are saying, well, look at the words of the past, look at these people, look at like you know Edgar Rice Burroughs and Robert E. Howard and all these guys that how they craft, how they structure, how succinct they are. And the thing that a lot of people, I think, it helps to remember is that these guys had to sit down and write sonnets in class. These guys,
Mm-hmm.
that was something that was part of English classes back then. Um, that it was a way of learning, for one thing, economy of language. When
Yes.
you have to be able to say what you want to say quickly. I'm currently being attacked by a cat, so if you hear any strange noises, that's why. Um, Butchie, my big cat, um, he likes to he likes to bother me when I'm on the computer. Um,
And
but he's
then,
terribly cute.
well, of course, and then it's like slowly your words change from oh well this and that to meow 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 meow,
Then
and then
you'll know what's going on. Yeah, I always like to try to keep give people a heads up on that kind of thing.
sure.
Um, right now, the Kickstarter is actually overfunded. And see, this once again, the way that he does Alex, which is his last name, but that's what I've always called him. And he's a very private person. He doesn't put pictures of himself out there. I have seen him because I drove to Little Rock at to go to a convention he was at. But and I respect that. I respect that.
Yeah.
But he's got a background in music, and I suspect that's where his promotional and business chops come from. Um, but anyway, he started the yeah, I'm going to be just talking of him all the time. He started the Kickstarter at $500, which is a very low amount. So it funded the first, actually it funded within 2 hours, um, and is currently sitting at over three times the initial goal. and those kind of things affect your visibility on Kickstarter, and it's one of the projects we love. Who we are, I don't know, but they love it, so I think they're good people. And now we're talking about stretch goals, and I made up some tchotchkes for some of the places in the stories. One of them takes place in a mall, and we've got a business card from that mall that with the name of the mall and a picture that's kind of significant to the story if you know the story.
Mm-hmm.
But those kind of things. Um, and I think he said that the first stretch goal was 4,000, which we may or may not make. But I mean I don't think we ever made the stretch goal on my last Endless Summer, which is my science fiction collection I did with him. But it's enough. So, I mean, the thing is, and that's another thing, is the book itself is done. He's had the editing. He's got the cover. He sent me the corrections, which I've looked at, and like, yeah, I'm like the anti Harlan Ellison in terms of editing my work. I just go ahead, change what you want, as long as you don't change it so it's not the same story anymore.
Right.
But they say, this needs to be 2 sentences. That you need to have a comma here. You need to take out that comma here, and for God's sakes, get rid of some of these M dashes. I'm yeah, I'm easy with that. I don't. The one thing is that frequently I will use bad grammar deliberately inside uh, dialogue, and that I tend to fight for because people do not speak grammatically. Particularly me, I ramble all over the place, and
Yeah.
if you were to directly transcribe this, um, it would probably be unreadable.
Well,
Um,
it's just from what I remember of our conversation in the last minute or so. Like, I think you've got like a run-on sentence that we could chop up into 3 complex sentences. Uh,
at least,
at least. So it's like, yeah, absolutely. Fortunately, I'm not your editor. I'm not going to worry about it. Uh,
but
I
the thing
appreciate it
is
though.
that
Mm.
yeah, if you go through and you change people's grammatic or change people's dialogue to be perfectly grammatical, it doesn't read like dialogue anymore.
It doesn't.
It reads like something that somebody has written, which
Yes.
but then there's always the imitative fallacy there. You don't want to exactly transcribe what somebody says because that's unreadable, but neither do you want it exactly like written text. There's kind of um, an imitation of something that reads as if you read it and it reminds you of somebody talking, but it's not exactly like somebody talking.
Right.
Um, so for what it's worth, I like writing dialogue. I think I'm pretty good at it. Um, Now, this book also, like my other books, I believe we haven't got a firm yes, but it should be available as an audiobook.
Ooh.
And it should be my usual reader, Brandon McKernan, who has recently started using Brandon Casanelli, which is harder to pronounce, but I don't know why. Anyway, he's an excellent voice actor, and he gets me. He understands. I never have to tell him, "Oh no, shouldn't be read like." It's like he reads it aloud just like it sounds in my head, which
Right.
is rare talent. And if you can find somebody who can perform your work like that, hold on to them. Do whatever it takes to make them happy.
Right.
With one of my books, Dark Fantasy, which was actually published by Baby Katie Press, who does Story Hack magazine, um, I decided to that I was going to read my introduction in my own voice and put it in the audiobook, and it was a horrible mistake. Never should have done that. And I really hope that anybody who gets that audiobook doesn't give up through the introduction and think, oh, this is a, and just skips that and goes to the good. Um,
You just
so
hear
that's
it skip, skip, skips. Ah, there we go.
anyway. I'm really excited about this project. It's breaking a lot of rules. Part of it is the poetry, putting it in there. Part of it is there are a lot of even horror doesn't exactly describe all of the stories. There's one that's a straight crime story that I actually originally wrote for Switchblade magazine. Um, there's one that's very much a science fiction dystopian story. Um, there's one that's kind of a romance actually. That's my own, and I don't generally write pastiches, um, but talking about influences, one of the stories that I always really liked was Lovecraft's The Shadow over Innsmouth,
Hmm.
which I read when I was a teenager. And when you're a teenager, the big reveal at the end. I don't know if I should do spoilers for a story that was published 80 years ago. Um,
100, give or
is
take.
it
Almost.
that
Because he
that
was
long ago?
active in the 1920s.
Right. So anyway, God, the 1920s were 100 years ago. God, I feel anyway. I'm still, mentally. People say 1980, and I think, oh yeah, 20 years ago. It's like no, 40 years ago. But anyway, so the big reveal at the end of the Shadow over Innsmouth is that the narrator is actually one of these Innsmouth fish people, and
Hmm.
bum, 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 bum. I'm grung scaled. Life sucks. Uh, but but whereas that made a big impression on me when I was a kid, I got to thinking, are these guys really that bad? I mean, they just kind of want to be left alone to do their own thing. Um, so I wrote a story about, well, what if the narrator had actually grown up in the town and was known his whole life. Yeah, when I get to be 60 years old, I'm going to turn into a fish guy and go into the sea. And what if it wasn't so bad? Um, and that story's in there, which is only peripherally horror because it's based on a story that's a horror story. But the story itself is kind of a slice of life. You know, guy marries his well, it's an arranged marriage, but he marries a girl from a local town and settles down and goes and turns into a fishman and goes into the sea. Uh,
Right, right.
I've got my take on A Christmas Carol. Only it's about New Year's Eve rather than Christmas, where a man is confronted by a ghost from his future on New Year's Eve and warns him to change his ways or bad things are going to happen. I've got my famous one of my huge influences. Excuse me, I got a cat sticking his tail in my mouth and making me cough. Is Tim Powers. I adore Tim Powers. Um, Matter of fact, my current audio book is The Stress of Her Regard. And but I wanted to do a Tim Powers style story where I took something that's on the surface inexplicable and said, well, what if there's a real reason for that?
Hmm.
And it's about a one of those bag ladies that hangs around the convenience store in the middle of the night, because I used to work at a convenience store in the night shift. And you know, you get these strange people who would come in mumbling to themselves and pay for everything with change and be wearing all these weird layers of clothes. And I thought to myself, well, what if there's actually a perfectly rational explanation for this person's bizarre behavior, but it involves supernatural things that ordinary people can't see. And so, I made this bag lady, Alice, who is basically saving the world from extra dimensional creatures. But since nobody else can see them, everybody thinks she's crazy. Um,
Right, right.
uh, yeah, like I say, I'm all over the place. I've got one strictly psychological novel about a or not novel, short story about a cult survivor who is trying to um, just live through, deal with ordinary life. Somebody who was raised in a apocalyptic cult that taught the end of the world was imminent, and then the world didn't end.
Mhm.
And
Right.
um, what do you do now? How do you just be ordinary after being, one of the chosen few who would survive the coming apocalypse?
Right.
But mostly they're about people. I mean, that's the thing I always come back to. That's the thing that what I see speculative fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy, weird tales, whatever. What I see the power of those stories is you take ordinary people and stick them in extraordinary situations. What um, I don't have characters who want to um, change things or be fantastic or be phenomenal. They just want to go home and get their dinner. They just want to do their job and get through the day. And
Yep.
a number of these are about people who encounter um, the weird, the fantastic at their job, at their work. It's like
Yep.
um, that's where we spend the majority of our time. Um, Most of us, anyway, and it's like, it's this is why I have to um, defeat the monster or escape the monster or unravel the mystery. It's not. It's my job. This is what I do,
Right.
and so and I think that's a motivation that gets overlooked in a lot of fiction, modern fiction, and
Yes.
um, and that's something that actually you see a lot in the old books. It wasn't just detective fiction, which obviously, yeah, it's my job to unravel the mystery. It's my job to save the girl from the uh, you know evil whatevers. Um, but a lot of exploring fiction, a lot of the um, lost city in the jungle or lost ship in the Arctic or whatever. These people were fishermen, were traders, were doing a job. They made their living on as part of the crew of a tramp steamer that was carrying bananas to Monaco. And it was during, I mean, if you look at the Call of Cthulhu, the famous
Mm.
Lovecraft, um, those guys who encountered the island of R'lyeh in the middle of the ocean were not, X Files guys. They weren't the Men in Black. They were people who were on a boat doing a job. Um,
Yep.
and that's what I write. I write about. I mean, I've got a guy who's looking over a um, derelict shopping mall because that's his job. Because he works for a company that's looking to buy it. He's going in as a structural engineer to see, is this property worth putting a couple of $1 million into, or do we just, bulldoze the thing? And he encounters something in there. Um, the very first story in my collection, Mystery Train, is a guy that works for the railroad, and that's my historical fiction, and that's my. I'm kind of proud of that one because I wanted to write a Catholic story, and I am myself not Catholic, um, but I think that I wanted to use that as a basis, and I ended up sending it to several people who are strongly Catholic, some of whom are, I guess, lay theologians who gave me back pages and pages of notes about all the stuff I got wrong. So um, but in the process of researching that story, I found out how you actually pray a rosary, which is something I never knew. Um, but but it's set in the late 19th century in on a train from Salt Lake City to Sacramento, and what happens um, while this man is on the train. Um, so I got one about frozen pizzas, about evil frozen pizzas, um, and uh, and why you should never ever eat the frozen pizzas that are available in cheap bars. You know,
Oh yeah.
absolutely, just stay away from them.
Yeah. I saw. So there was a guy who complained about bodegas, and New Yorkers got so angry that they worked in concert to get him to lose his job. Like absolutely crazy. And the thing is, people are like, "What do you mean bodegas are clean?" And he shows a picture of a rat inside the frozen pizza place, eating on a pizza without like anyone doing anything about it. And it's like, huh, all right,
Now,
no,
I do believe in trying to support locally owned businesses, but you know here in St. Louis we have at least two locally owned supermarket chains,
yep.
both Deerbergs and Schnucks, and I tend to support them. Um, I've got my favorite grocery store, which I guess is a sign that I'm an old man. Um, which is the big Deerbergs on Manchester with parking, underground parking. I love
Oh,
that
I
store.
know that one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Um, so yeah, why people should support this? People should support this because um, I need to be able to buy cat food and dog food. Yes, I need to be able to buy dog food for my Chihuahua who is in here barking at me. Special guest appearance. Uh, from Pixie. Um, but I think it's worthwhile. I think it's
Oh
worthwhile.
yeah,
I've never been comfortable with saying support this because I need the money. Aside
right.
from doing it as a joke, I think you're getting good value for it. I think that he's got the books, whether they're um, he's got a number of different print options. Uh, there's the the small size. He's got an actual atlas-sized one
That's
that
pretty
we
fun.
thought would be pretty cool. It's going to be in the same format of the magazines, or there's the regular trade paperback size, or he's got the hardcover special deluxe atlas size that. Um, and then the ebook, and ebooks are easy. I personally can't read ebooks anymore. My vision is getting to the point that even when you crank up the print size, it just gives me a headache. And then eventually the audiobook, which is my preferred method of reading nowadays. But I think it's different. It's I my heroes of the writing trade um, are mostly short story writers. Now that I think about it, Ray Bradbury, who did do some novels towards the end, but I think that was pressure from his publisher. Harlan Ellison, who wrote one novel that is flat out unreadable, um, but a lot of really good short stories. Um, George Alec Effinger, that everybody knows from the When Gravity Fails trilogy, but again, his short fiction, his story collections, Irrational Numbers and Dirty Tricks, and um, he's got those kind of punch stories where, like I say, it's all kind of built around the punchline. Frederick Brown, of course, who wrote millions of those. Um, that um, I don't think he did the famous "To Serve Man." I think that was Damon Knight, but
Yes, I believe so.
he did a lot in that vein, in that kind of shaggy dog. Um, he actually wrote what is um, supposedly one of the very first short slash flash fiction stories um, called Knock. That the whole text of the story is the last man in the room. The last man in the world sat in a room. There was a knock at the door. Uh, and it's that kind of thing. And that's, like I said, that's what I'm going for. That's what I don't. They're not splatterpunk. They're not big gore fests. But I think by
Hmm.
and large, they're the kind of stories that will stick with you um, late at night when you're trying to go to sleep. Um, and they're fun, and that's the bottom line is that sometimes fun gives you a little shiver, um, but for the most part, I want them to um, make you feel good, make you feel good about yourself, and you know one of my mental guidelines is that I want to write stories so that at the end of the story you can think back over the events and think, if I was in the situation that that character was in and I acted the way that character acted, I'd be able to feel good about myself. you know um,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a vicarious um, oh, this horrible thing happened, but I got through it. I kept myself together. I rose to the occasion, and and that's what I want to leave people with. I want to leave people feeling good, uh, feeling better about themselves than they did when they started the story, and and that's a lot of a lot of horror fiction. You know, is so bleak, is so everything is horrible and it's going to get worse. And you know, you only survive by being more monstrous than the monster. oh, we are the true monsters all along. I hate that. That's why I didn't like, I couldn't watch The Walking Dead after the first um, two or three seasons.
Yeah.
Um, the opening and the first couple of seasons, I really liked the idea, and for a while it was positive. It was, everybody's working together, and they're not perfect, and some of them are really not perfect, but you had characters you could admire. You had was it Rick and Daryl the redneck, who was supposed to be a joke but ended up being the hero of the series, and you had these. Yeah, it was about facing the unthinkable and dealing with it, rising to the occasion. And then it turned into, who can be the worst person in the universe, the whole governor arc, and
Yep.
the zombies became just something in the background to give an excuse for people being horrible to each other. Why are you
Yep.
throwing everything on my table off onto the floor? My cat is annoyed that I'm ignoring him, and he's depopulating my writing table, throwing things off one at a time. That's fine. I'll get him later
Right.
on.
Right.
I know where he sleeps. So yeah. So I think that it'll be good for your mental health. There, you should get a doctor's prescription. I need to buy this collection because I will feel good about myself, and the next time that uh, you know some horrible monster crawls out of the sewers to eat me, I'll be prepared. I'll be ready to deal with it because tomorrow's another day, and the sun will come out tomorrow, and maybe they'll
Yep.
be with the construction in my street. I mean, the thing is that we don't have the luxury of most of us most of the time don't have the luxury of having huge victories. You
Right.
know, we get up and we go to work and we avoid decking our annoying coworkers and we finish the jobs that we got to do and we clock out, we go home, and we eat dinner, go to bed, and get up and do it all over again tomorrow. And that's important, that's vital, but it's not sexy, it's not a um, big victory. And that's the I guess that's what I want to give people. I want to give people the feeling that you know who I am and who ordinary people are. Ordinary people can do extraordinary things.
Yep.
If I was in this situation, I know I could handle it, and then I could feel good about it, and then it'd be, the credits roll, and the swelling music plays, and it's all happily ever after. Um,
Exactly.
that's why I very seldom write characters who are supernatural themselves or have magical powers or superpowers or would not to denigrate those kinds of stories, but that's not where I think I can do the most good. Um, I wrote
Right.
a whole collection, Bad Dreams and Broken Hearts, specifically as the anti um, Harry Dresden. you know, um, because I wanted to write about somebody where everybody else has got magical powers and he doesn't. Um, that's the tagline of the collection. Is it's hard to fight wizards and demons when all you have is a gun and a badge. He's just a cop. He works for the mayor's office that regulates magic, and so he's constantly in situations where he's got to arrest people who can throw fireballs, and um, but he does it. He gets through it, and that's um, I think, and I've gone back and forth, and if you read my Twitter feed, and God knows why anybody would do that, but I'm always getting into arguments about Harry Potter and about the X Men and about you know heroes that can do, amazing, fantastic, phenomenal things. It's like, yeah, okay, Wolverine is a great guy, but when you've got an adamantium skeleton and are essentially unkillable, you're not taking the same risks that Joe Blow is taking.
Yep.
Um, when you're indestructible, it's easy to be a hero.
Oh
But
yeah.
we're not indestructible. We as human beings are very destructible. We're extremely fragile. Um, I've done enough working around heavy equipment and power tools, and uh, we can be broken so easily. And when you know you're fragile, when you know and you stand up and you do it anyway, and you're like, this could hurt me, this could kill me, this could do terrible things to me, but I'm going to go ahead and make a stand anyway because it's the right thing to do. And that's what courage is.
Yep.
Courage isn't being fearless. Courage is being scared to death and doing it anyway.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Warms.
so
Hmm?
I've rambled for 50 minutes. Is there anything in particular you wanted to ask me?
Well,
Aside,
yeah. I mean, it was great. When a guest can ramble, hey, that just makes my job easy. I'm not complaining. No, I just think it's kind of funny you mentioned a haunted mall when this week's Pinkerton's Ghost episode was a mall haunted by my main character's quasi nemesis, the puppeteer.
well, yeah, actually, I listened to that, and that's one of the reasons I brought up the story is that. Um, Now, my story is actually I never mention it, but it's Crestwood Mall is the mall that my story is based
Ah,
on.
wait, that's the one off of 6440, right?
That's the one off of Watson Road. It's not there
Oh, I
anymore.
remember that. Yeah. Oh, I remember that one. So that was
Yeah.
actually part of the inspiration for my mall. But I actually started it with the mall off of 6440 out past 270 west.
Oh, the St. Louis Mills Mall.
No, I can't remember. Whatever. But yeah, no, the entrance is just explicitly that mall. Not that I would ever admit it.
Right, right. Well, I mean, there's always, and I covered this on my last interview, but I almost always I've got a very good visual memory,
Hmm.
and uh, I've done enough technical work that I tend to remember things like where the fire extinguishers are and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Um, and so nearly all of my locations in my stories are places that I've really been. Most of them are places that I've been for work, um, and and so that makes it so much easier. I don't have to invent places.
Right.
But there's always I have to be careful that I don't actually use anything actionable in the story and mention, because if somebody said, hey, I'm the property manager for this particular building, and you wrote a story in which you implied that there were slime monsters living in my basement, and so I'm going to sue you. So I always anonymize the locations, but they're all real places.
Oh
Every
yeah.
time you read one of my stories, there's a real place. There's some place in the real world that this is based on.
Yep. I'm the same way for a lot of it. It's there's not literally a mannequin monster living in the bowels of some sort of weird hybrid of South County Mall, Crestwood, and whatever the other mall is. It's not really there.
I
It's
can neither confirm nor deny the existence of the mannequin
exactly
monster.
the yeah. Uh, yeah. So here's a sort of more meta question, I guess, or not, or more technical question, a craft question. I'm of the opinion that the reason why purple prose is no longer like acceptable, quote unquote purple prose, because no one actually knows what purple prose means. Uh, well, no, we know what purple prose means, but like the average know-it-all on Tumblr and Twitter and whatnot doesn't know what it means. But do you think that if people wrote and read more poetry, there would be no complaint about purple prose?
Well, if the people who are writing the purple prose wrote more poetry, then they do it a lot more succinctly.
Yes.
And and that's just it. Is that it's the problem isn't purple prose. Um, the problem is people writing it poorly.
Yes.
The thing is there's a reason to use that kind of lush, descriptive, metaphorical language, but you got to use it right. It's like um, if you're just shoveling in the words in some kind of salad, then no, nobody's going to read that. Nobody's going to
Right.
want to read that. But you've got to be very clear on the structure. You've got to be very clear on, and it's got to make sense, and it's got to be there for a reason.
Yep.
If I spend two paragraphs leveling describing the staircase that leads up, there's got to be a reason for it.
Right.
Why are you sitting there talking about the staircase?
Right.
Let's get up the stairs and see what's in the attic. You
There,
know,
it better be a set piece. There's got to be two murders and a dramatic reveal on this staircase before it's acceptable.
there's got to be a reason for it. There's got to
Yes.
be, and that's one thing. One of the reasons that I like short fiction is because you don't have room for stuff for no reason.
Yeah.
With novels, particularly people who are writing to a particular word count, who's like, oh my god, I've got to fill 160,000 words, or nobody's going to look at this. They go off on these tangents,
Yep.
and that's where it gets tedious, where it gets, you know, if you're describing the sky and the sunset for 6 pages, then yeah, nobody's gonna want to read that.
Absolutely.
Why is it significant? You're not Marcel Proust, okay? Trust me.
Absolutely. Well, I was reading, Maupassant, the father of short stories, and it's like his genius with words is like he didn't describe barely anything, but I knew exactly what it was. I knew what it looked like. I knew what it smelled like. I knew what the Parisian street was just from, I guess, three good paragraphs across 2 pages with dialogue. Uh, it's an art. It's an art, and I do believe that poetry would help people control that art better. Um, let's see here. I'm certainly going to invest in your Kickstarter. I do like the look of the trade paperback. I don't really have much for much more, but I will certainly pick up the trade paperback at least. But I do see a hardcover. I see the Atlas size, which is the same price as the paperback, by the way, so it's not more to have the cool one. Uh, and I know there's always a few more things there. If we do get to stretch goals, we get cards. That's pretty cool. Business cards.
Yeah, those cards, if you'll, like I say, they're all from places in the stories.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I designed those logos, um, which I steal a lot of. I love being able to search for clip art with the filter for what's available for commercial use. Because that's another thing is that I hate to use somebody's artwork and have them come turn around and say, Oh wait, you use this without my permission, so I always make sure that all of the clip art I steal is licensed for free commercial use. Um,
Right. It's just I like it. Kosova's uh, projects are always well backed and well set up. We even have some Endless Summer trade paperback, hardback, and a few other things besides. It's certainly one of those things where I appreciate a well put together project. Your words about just publishing something is close to my heart. I've published two novels, both about 60K, and Pinkerton's Ghost is about three novels worth. About 70, 80K. Um, I know I've put them together. Actually, it's about six, but I haven't done season two yet. Uh, and I know people who have door stoppers. Actually, you could make a door out of these books. Uh, but unfortunately, they haven't published anything. So, like, as much as I would love to have them as a rival or something like that, it's like that one Mad Max theme. It's like, no, not Mad Men meme, where it's like, I don't think about you at all, and it's like I
right.
would like to think about you because you're good or whatever, but it's you're not publishing, you're not in the game.
I don't have. I mean, other writers are not my rivals. I mean, people keep saying, you know, if you like somebody else's work, that's great. There are a lot of people that I support. There are a lot of people that whose work I don't particularly like.
Mm,
And I've got bizarre kind of taste. But the thing is that there is there is no scarcity of market.
yep,
We are not at a point where somebody picking up one of Sky Hellstrom's books is doing so and not picking up mine.
right.
We're
I,
not
I I'm doing that right
fighting,
now.
we're not fighting over the market. There
Yep,
is plenty of room, and there's going to be plenty of room for quite a while.
yep,
The fiction is an underserved market. So if I can support anybody in any way, whatever you write, if you write, I don't know, furry erotica, I don't care. But the thing is write it, get it out there, get it to market. Um, people are people are hungry. People are
yeah,
hungry for decent books
yep.
and decent stories. And right now we've got several um, good magazines for independent genre fiction. We could
Mm-hmm.
use plenty more. I mean, right now, I would love to see us at a point where there are two um, Pulp Rev magazines coming out every month, and I think the market could support it. Right now, the publishers, um, you know, they've all got day jobs. They're doing the best they can, but if we get 6 or 8 good solid issues a year, we're lucky.
Yep.
Um, so so
It's
get out there. Kursova is going to be opening for submissions in August.
ooh.
So everybody who's listening to this, if you're looking for a sign, if you're looking for, your opportunity to write a short story and get it to market, this is your sign. I am talking to you personally. Write it, get it out there,
Yep. Play the
and
big game. Win the big prizes.
win the big prizes. And before you know it, you'll be, you can aspire to be like me and have lots of cats and dogs in the house who depend upon you for food.
Don't sell yourself short. We also we both live in St. Louis, where it's a Mad Max experience every day just to get through the highway. Those war boys don't come cheap. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, well, I'm pretty happy and I'm pretty satisfied. Uh, Thank you for coming on, Misha. Uh,
Thank you for inviting me.
oh, absolutely. Like you, I'm very passionate about the culture we have here. I think that the market is growing for us. I had a couple normies just repost some praise of Pinkerton's Ghosts, which utterly shocked me. I wasn't expecting it, and I didn't pay for it either, which is the really shocking thing. So I'm hoping that as we go on, we will grow because me and Jason Rennie, if you remember him from the Superversive days, are
Oh yeah.
working together on a fiction project that we hope will tickle some pulp rev itches. Uh, with some monthly content. Not as much as, say, your average Kursova mag, but consistent and of quality that you expect from people in our sphere. Because, quite frankly, I believe that we do have the highest quality of standards uh, in the literary spheres that are going on right now. No matter what dinosaurs like Tor and whatnot, uh, Simon and Schuster and others say. We are the super wave, not just a new wave, a super wave, and we're going to wash over this city. We're going to wash over all the cities, and then we will profit. Yes. I mean, there's some question marks in between there. You see, some underwear gnome logic going on, but I like to dream. Thank you,
Right.
Misha.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep, yep. Be sure to back the Kickstarter. The link is in the chat. It is in the description. Uh, and it's in my Twitter and a whole bunch of other things. Thank you all for joining. Hope to see you next week. Just a reminder, we're a bit delayed on the Protestant versus Catholic streams that Anthony and I have been doing. We will catch up soon. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Good night.